the freaks of your side in control. Oh, I'm almost afraid to say his name this publicly. But I feel like I feel if I did. P.F. Jung. He's like he's a centrist kind of guy thing.
I don't know who P.F. Jung is.
Oh man, I feel like I don't know if I'm doing something good for the universe right now by broadcasting his name. He's interesting. He's one of the most interesting creators I've watched recently.
How do you?
Jung. Jung, Jung. But I did a talk with him, and he had this argument about managing the freaks on your side or something like that. And I was explaining to him that no, that's not actually a useful thing to do.
Many people believe
as you build if you're trying to build a political activity in a movement.
I think you've brought him up before.
Yeah, I mean, I've talked to him in real life. I've talked to him. He doesn't seem like some of the times when he says stuff, I'm like, all right, I'm never talking to you again. But other times I'm like, there's an interest in there, because he's meme. He's reduced all of this to memes, and as dumb as that sounds, as I start thinking about populism right now, it actually feels like.
I mean, there's also J-Reg does that too.
J-Reg, yeah.
A lot of these guys do that.
Yeah.
A lot of these guys.
Him and J-Reg, I think. Yeah, there you go, right there.
Yeah. Or there's the conservative J.J. McCullough, who's like a conservative in Canada, so he's like the most woke gay libtard by American standards. But like these guys actually have a political home within the framework of the Democratic Party, because like their defensive institutions and their centrism, their radical centrism, unironically fits perfectly within the Democratic Party. But it actually doesn't fit at all within the popular like actual voters for the Democratic Party don't fit that.
Right. Because
most voters for the Democratic Party are not voting positively for the Democratic Party. They're voting because there's no other alternative, and they don't want an incompetent who's like a rabid fascist to become president.
They're afraid that if they don't vote for the Democratic president, that the guy that will become president will create a Gestapo to go and get. Is Gestapo the right?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. That's what I'm getting at.
So, but these guys don't understand that. They're like, they've actually adopted the framework of the Democratic Party completely, even though there is not any real organic popular support for the actual thing that the Democratic Party represents, the actual political like third way neoliberalism that the Democrats represent. So they just have to do memes and try to like.
Did I say it wrong? Gestapo, Kenloy swim team.
No, Gestapo is correct, or Gestapo is correct. But anyway.
F.D Signifier's appearance on Hasanabi's stream revealed a fascinating dynamic in the ever-shifting world of political content creators. Known for his progressive outlook, F.D surprised many by expressing interest in a creator named P.F. Jung, someone who doesn't neatly fit into the ideological boxes that dominate online discourse. P.F. Jung, by F.D's description, is a strange mix, someone with centrist leanings who occasionally entertains or sympathizes with elements of the alt-right. For a leftist like F.D. to find intrigue in such a figure already complicates the neat tribalism of online politics. What followed, however, especially Hasan's reaction, showcased the deep discomfort many progressives feel when centrists and moderate contrarians start sharing platforms with figures who represent ideologies historically hostile to marginalized groups. When Hasan searched P.F. Jung, one of the first names he encountered was J.J. McCullough, a Canadian commentator known for his conservative positions. J.J. McCullough is openly gay, which further complicates the ideological lines. In Canada, McCullough is considered relatively mainstream, but when his politics are imported into the American discourse, he suddenly looks out of place. Hasan reacted negatively upon seeing P.F. Jung collaborate with him. This wasn't simply about McCullough's conservatism, but about what it represents, a willingness to blur lines between progressive spaces and conservative ones, even when those conservatives are dressed up in socially liberal identities like being gay or Canadian. This is where the conversation gets interesting. What F.D. seemed to appreciate in P.F. Jung was not necessarily agreement with his politics, but the way he condensed political meaning into digestible, meme-like formats. In a world where the meme has replaced the essay as the primary mode of communication, that skill matters. Figures like J.Reg, Kim, and other content creators in the meme-centric space have tapped into this populist approach to politics, taking complex ideological frameworks and distilling them into catchy, humorous, and emotionally resonant packaging. The problem, however, is that while this makes the politics more consumable, it also strips them of nuance and makes it easier for contradictions to sit side by side without resolution. Hasan's frustration wasn't just about P.F. Jung featuring a conservative guest. It was about how these hybrid spaces create a political culture where centrism, contrarianism, and neoliberal institutionalism all get disguised as balance or independent thought. In reality, what they often produce is an ideological gray zone that doesn't meaningfully challenge power structures. F.D. even pointed out that these figures, in many ways, replicate the framework of the Democratic Party establishment. They defend institutions, prioritize stability, and present themselves as reasonable alternatives to extremism. On paper, this sounds fine, but it sidesteps the reality that most Democratic voters in the United States aren't inspired by the party's centrist policies. They vote blue not because they love neoliberalism, but because the alternative is a Republican Party that has embraced increasingly reactionary and authoritarian positions. This leads to a strange tension. Figures like P.F. Jung or J.J. McCullough can find a home in the broader Democratic framework because their centrist defense of institutions aligns perfectly with the party leadership's third-way neoliberal philosophy. Yet they have no organic connection to the actual Democratic base, which is largely composed of working-class people, minorities, and young voters who want material changes rather than endless defenses of a fragile status quo. This is why F.D.'s praise of P.F. Jung seems so strange to Hasan. To him, P.F. Jung represented a form of politics that is aesthetically contrarian but substantively hollow, and that hollowness is made more glaring when combined with collaborations featuring conservatives like McCullough. It's important to remember that F.D. himself wasn't endorsing P.F. Jung's worldview. What fascinated him was the creativity and the ability to translate political concepts into memes. In many ways, this is the future of political communication online. But it also poses dangers. The memification of politics creates a playing field where extreme ideas can spread under the guise of humor. Centrists can appear more radical than they actually are, and political identities get flattened into viral images rather than substantive beliefs. The discomfort that Hasan felt when encountering McCullough on P.F. Jung's channel reveals the broader anxiety of the progressive left. Collaborations across ideological lines are not neutral acts, they carry symbolic weight. When a centrist or left-leaning figure gives a platform to a conservative, it can appear as legitimization, even if the intent is debate or dialogue. And in an age where platforming is almost as powerful as endorsing, the line between the two becomes blurred. This is why reactions to P.F. Jung aren't just about his ideas, but about the company he keeps and the imagery he allows to circulate through his work. At the heart of this entire episode is a question about how political movements grow, adapt, and communicate in the digital age. F.D.'s interest in P.F. Jung suggests that even leftist commentators are aware of the power of meme-based communication, even if it sometimes comes packaged with uncomfortable alliances. Hasan's resistance shows the opposite concern, that the left cannot afford to muddy its waters by engaging too closely with figures who ultimately defend the status quo or align with conservative rhetoric. Both perspectives are valid, but together they highlight the central tension of modern political content creation, the need to reach wider audiences while also maintaining ideological coherence. And this debate doesn't just live online. It mirrors real-world struggles within progressive politics. Establishment Democrats rely on centrist messaging to hold power, while grassroots movements demand radical change. Figures like P.F. Jung, who embody a contradictory blend of centrism and alt-right sympathy, serve as a reminder that political identity online is far more fluid than traditional party lines suggest. To some, that fluidity is dangerous because it legitimizes harmful ideologies. To others, it's a necessary adaptation to the chaotic media environment we live in. Ultimately, F.D.'s praise and Hasan's skepticism reflect two sides of the same problem. How do you build political communities in a fragmented, meme-driven landscape? P.F. Jung may not have the answers, but his rise and the reactions to him demonstrate how the lines between left, center, and right are blurring in ways that would have been unimaginable in the old world of newspapers and cable television. And whether one sees that as opportunity or threat depends entirely on how much risk one is willing to accept in the pursuit of influence.